So you're going to learn what a plugin is in a decent level of detail for the use case of, and this is a 101. So the use case of you taking it and using it in your work. You'll figure out where to find them. Pretty straightforward, kind of, because Claude has a lot of features and lots of bloat. You'll figure out how to install one and use it, and you'll also have some of my sort of decision making and how I make decisions on when a plugin is worth it and when a skill is enough, or maybe even just a regular chat. So without further ado, I'm gonna jump right in. Okay, prompt skill plugin. What's the difference? So with a prompt, you're just asking for help. If you ask most people in the world today, it's just a better Google, right? But for all of us here, we ask for help. We have it kind of do things for us. Help me do this, help me do that, etc. A skill, which I have a skill 101. If you scroll back up in the chat, you'll probably see the link to the library. There's a whole skills 101 and have a bunch more on skills. But the idea here is this is how you teach AI, Claude, or even ChatGPT, because they have skills, a way of doing something. I think that's a really good way to describe what a skill is. And then the plugin would be doing an entire job because you can put skills, some tools, and even some other things, which I'll talk about as we go, into sort of a plugin, which means it can do a lot more than just a single task or a short list of tasks or things that a skill would do. It's kind of does a good way to think about it is does an entire job. And one of the most valuable things about the plugins is like there's sort of a way that you can make it more interactive within the UI and things like that. And that's why we're talking about Claude, because they've actually spent a lot of time, it feels like, making plugins a first-class citizen in their product. Okay, so why would you bother with this? A lot of this, including skills themselves, has a lot to do with repetition. And if it's something you want to repeat and you want to repeat at a quality that you've kind of come to enjoy, or it's a multi-step process, which usually means there's some quality considerations in it, a plugin tends to make it better. So you want to think about it like a skill can do a job if you use it and have your prompting for it and understand how to do that or are familiar with doing that. So it's like a prompts plus plus is what skills are. And then a plugin actually makes sort of Claude feel more like an expert or a specialist, if you want to call it that. And also comes with tools that you can wire in and all kinds of things like that. And then basically what the real goal is that you're just prompting. A simple way to think about it is you're prompting less when you use plugins. And that means that you're able to do more faster and have the plugin do a lot more than what a skill or a back and forth prompt would do for you. Okay, so what's inside a plugin? That's probably what all of you are wondering or just curious about. So first, you have skills. Then you have what I think is safe to refer to as connectors, but for folks that have been around AI for a while, MCPs, apps, this all fits in this funky, now we call them connectors category. This is probably TMI, but I used to work on this stuff at Dropbox. We were building chat and all kinds of things over a year ago. And we didn't have a name for them. We called them connectors too. So, but that's encompassing this idea that AI connects to the tools you use. So connectors is kind of the blanket word that we've all used. So a plugin is skills connectors. And then last but not least is commands. And these are basically allow you to trigger various things with the skill. And sometimes this includes what's called sub-agents and background steps that run sort of on their own as part of being plugged in to the plugin. So that's the breakdown. There's a little diagram that kind of hopefully explains all the blobbiness of plugins and what they involve. And we can get into sub-agents, but the simple way to think about it is it's AI doing things as part of the plugin and doing them without you maybe even having to think about it or anything like that. Again, all of this is dependent on whoever built the plugin, how it was built, everything it connects to, and all that stuff. Okay, so jumping in, let's talk about how to actually install one of these things. So in Claude, there's a customize tab on the left. You click it. Okay, simple, right? Then from there, you have to go all the way down and then click plugins. Not so simple, but that's there. And then click browse plugins. You have to remember to do that a couple clicks for some reason if you don't have any sitting there already that you've installed. And then here you have the ability to browse plugins, and you can choose Anthropic plugins or partner plugins. Partner plugins, as you can imagine, are ones that companies like the companies I have, or any SaaS company, or honestly individuals can kind of submit a plugin and get it in their marketplace. So that's what the partners tab is. So you get a really good idea of ones that are official Anthropic plugins and ones that are from other partners. And then from there, and this is where things start getting fun, like really fun, to be honest. Even when you look in the marketplace, this stuff's super cool. And maybe I'm just geeking out and I'm a nerd, but which is all true. But you can see the skills that are built, and you can see all the connectors that are available to you with that plugin. And here, this plugin, we're looking at the marketing sort of plugin that comes from Anthropic, and it tells you all these different things it can do. So this is why, I mean, I know we're on step 4 here and there's about 2 or 3 more steps, but this is why I get excited about plugins. It is a bundle of these things all together, uh, put in there. Okay. Once you kind of connect it and turn it on, it's essentially active in the next conversation, and you can essentially open the plugin. So this is me actually opening the plugin post install and kind of taking a deeper look at it, because now it starts describing all the skills and the connectors and gives you more details on all of that. And then if you need to connect, you do need to take this step and click the connectors and start installing any of these that you might not already have installed or connected to the plugin. So that's another step that you're going to want to take, step 6 here. And then step 7 is, as you can imagine, go put it to work. How do you do that? Well, there's that plus in little thing in Claude, and you can go actually pick the plugin deliberately, or you can sort of / command it, or it'll automatically try to invoke the skills and connectors and all that stuff. And I know someone asked, does having too many plugins burn tokens and usage? The short answer is no. The longer answer is it's up to Anthropic and how they built Claude. But the short answer is no, because if just having the plugins would be burning tokens, people would be really pissed off at Anthropic, and people do get pissed off at them from time to time. So I would say that I wouldn't worry about token burn just from installing plugins. Using plugins, you're going to want to monitor that, as with everything you do with AI. Okay, so wanted to give a sort of quick example, because this is a 101, so I didn't want to go really deep into too many examples, although I have a couple other things to share related to plugins before we're done. But this is an example prompt of in Cowork asking about something that I'm doing on a regular basis, which is getting a report about Heaton.com, which is the site you folks came through to get here. And basically, when I did that, it basically used the skill from the marketing plugin on its own and decided to give me this sort of fancy looking report. And it tells me that it used that plugin. So super cool. It also used it tells me it used the skill from the plugin. And then it also used a docx skill to make me a docx. I don't know why we're making docx's, but that's a whole different story. And just as a sort of before after sort of example, before we installed the plugin, this is the output that it looked like. A standard wall of text with a table. Thank God there's a table. It's not just a bunch of text, compared to a full-on executive summary, a little mini dashboard looking thing in the doc, and a trend analysis and a bunch of other stuff to help us understand kind of what's going on with our data. So this is the difference between no plugin and plugin. And so if you want the plugin equipped version, that's kind of what you would do. And this is just a very common use case. That's why I wanted to share this one use case. I didn't want to share any others today, because you should look at the plugin marketplace yourself and kind of figure out what you want to use, what you need to use based on your work. So you're probably asking, okay, fine. You just told me that, help me out. Cool. I'm going to help you out. So this section is just about what plugins should you install and how do I think about it and help others think about it too. So a few favorite categories and even plugins themselves are the productivity one. This one's really cool. It actually adds task management and things like that into Claude. That's why I've been saying on social media and all that this is the app store for Claude. That's basically what it boils down to. Because think about it. If you can add a productivity plugin, I think this one is the actual official one, and it adds all these features into Claude. What is this? The app store. Okay, enterprise search. Super cool. I know some of you might be using Glean and tools like that. I was building one of those tools and more at Dropbox as well. You could just install the plugin. You don't need Glean or any of that stuff if you want the basics of enterprise search. And yeah, I built these things and I'm telling you that. You don't need them. You need this to start because before you buy those things, even at a large org, I'd start with this to understand, hey, do we even need this thing? Or do we need something more robust? Then there's Plugin Create. That one's really awesome. It walks you through building your own plugin. Need I say more? And then, of course, any plugins that are related to your role. So that's why the marketplace is cool. If I were in marketing or product or even sales or any of these areas, I'd go look in the marketplace and go literally look at and study those plugins. It is worth it. This is your role. It's your job. You should understand what's available to you in Claude's marketplace. So I would highly encourage everyone to go browse the marketplace and look at things that interest you like this, because there's probably going to be a ton of plugins where you're gonna be like, holy crap, it's going to save me a ton of time and I should definitely try it. I see even today, like I'm pretty familiar with the marketplace and all that, but I go in there, I'm like, oh, I find new stuff. It's like pretty robust, especially when you start, venturing over to the partners and look at all the things that are out there, which I hope all of you do, because there's a bunch of cool ones that companies have built too. But that wasn't the point of today. Today is like, hey, how do we get started with this stuff? And the main reason is I would estimate that like max 5% of people that use Claude at work are using plugins. And I hope that number increases because it's like incredible how much power you get. And then Claude Design. Claude Design is always a good one as a plugin to install and have available to you because you're probably trying to create stuff even if you're not designing. So, I had a whole session on HTML, how to use HTML. Claude Design helps a ton with that kind of stuff. Okay. So it's always a good question. So is it a plugin or is it just a prompt? So the way you want to think about it is when there's opinions oriented around what you need to do and it's things that you want to do repetitively. I think the example I gave of the marketing report is really good example. There's an opinionated setup and a recurring job we're doing. So the plugin's actually helpful because normally what we would do is we would look, get the chat or ask for the report, get it in the chat, and then have to go tell it to analyze and all that. And then now we're prompting. Instead, now we just say it once and it's already got everything set up. It even gives us the docx as just an example, and it kind of produces exactly what we want in the way we want it. So the skills are kind of part of plugins and they help do all this. And single skills will just get you that output. But at the end of the day, like a plugin is what really helps you build out something that is a multi-step workflow and things like that in Claude or Claude Cowork or Claude Code, whichever tool you're using. The plugins work across Claude. That's another reason I really wanted to talk about plugins with Claude, mainly because in ChatGPT, it's a lot more confusing and they haven't really figured out their strategy here from what I can tell as a user. Overall, if it's just one-off, a prompt or a skill is probably good enough. But if you're trying to do something as a workflow and you want the same kind of work again and again, plugins are the newish kind of way to do that. And then everyone always asks about this, especially if they're on teams. Makes sense. You can roll this out to your entire team. If you have an admin or you're able to admin it and have that access, or have an admin, they can install a plugin, roll it out to the whole organization, and everyone gets to have the same setup. And you're not configuring it person to person. So prompts, you're essentially configuring person to person. Skills, little less so, but plugins are like entire workflows. So I think, one of the biggest problems I see is that there's a lot of sprawl of prompts and skills and ways and even maturity of how people use Claude and how mature they are about their usage and this and that, their skill level. But plugins allow you to have this consistency across the entire company. And that's why I think plugins are really cool and really valuable and why I wanted to talk about them today. So what do you do today? Well, it's fairly simple off of this session, which is you want to open the plugins marketplace. Takes you 3 or 4 clicks to do it. I described it earlier. And then you want to install one that matches a job you do often. In our case, we do a bunch of marketing stuff. So we install that one and use it quite a bit. And run it on a real task. So that's the basics of the 101. There's a lot more to plugins. That being said, this is the bulk of it. If you start using plugins like this, you're going to be well ahead of most people that I see trying to use AI, trying to use Claude and all that kind of stuff.